towards where Davy Rogers is up. Rogers swings the left. Davy Rogers! Oh, what a goal by Davy Rogers!
Not one person in this stadium seen this coming.
You can see the guards behind the goal at the main stand. They will be investigating Shelbourne for robbery. They have absolutely mugged Sligo United here at Dogfight.
And find the goal! Harry Wood, the jersey's off. 6 minutes to...
Look at the bad one! What a goal that is!
Hello everyone and welcome back to the LOI Talk podcast. I'm your host John O'Gallagher and I'm delighted to be joined again by Jamie this week. We were a bit lazy this week and we actually got a few of the other lads to do cover us on a space to cover the match previews. Now we're still going to go through it a little bit and just give our opinions, but we're mainly going to be focusing today on the upcoming preview for this segment of the podcast. So please enjoy the preview as well of the X Space before. So I'm just going to introduce Jamie, and Jamie, thanks a million for coming back. How are we getting on this week?
Not too bad, John. Nice handy episode this time, not a lot of work. Yeah, I'm looking forward to a good set of fixtures coming up, title deciding. It's an exciting time for the league.
It's really the business end of the season. I think it's important I note that should Drogheda beat Derry, also if Shamrock Rovers beat their arch rivals Bohs, they will indeed win the league. So literally, like mathematically, so a lot is riding on this week. Also down at the relegation battle, you've got Galway United against Cork City. Cork City with a dreadful away record, but Galway kind of struggling recently as well. So it's one of the most important game weeks really in a while. But just to briefly go over our brief thoughts there. Now you viewers would have just heard the space, I would imagine. So you've digested it and you've got the full synopsis. But obviously, some very interesting results. Firstly, when it comes to the relegation zone, Sligo Rovers with a huge win over Galway United, as I actually mentioned in the Connacht derby. This game we'd been talking about for weeks that it was going to be huge, like it was going to be a big decider. And now at this stage, I believe I could be wrong with the tallies here, but I think Galway are on 27 points in ninth, while Sligo are 31 points. So it's really, Sligo are very much in the driving seat now to not just stay up. They actually look like they could get higher than ninth. Waterford lost to Bohs as well, so that puts them in a difficult position. We lots of rumours flying around the place that John Coleman's job is potentially in danger because they haven't won a game since July 25th. Obviously, everyone will remember that famous start they had. They've started really well under John Coleman, but unfortunately for them, they're really struggling since then. As I said, no win since July 25th. So it's really heating up down at the bottom. And look, I've got to talk about Cork City now. Absolutely pathetic performance against St. Pat's. And I know I made that claim last week, and we'll maybe get to that. But just absolutely pathetic, and I think it virtually confirms that we're down. But what the frustrating thing is there's about 7 points between, or 8, maybe more or less, between us and Galway. Galway and Waterford have been so poor towards this end of the season that the fact that Cork aren't in the race to stay up at all, it's a really poor reflection on the players and probably the management staff as well, despite this little bit of okay form we've had before the Pats game. So yeah, it's really it's a really not a good time. But then as we push up the table a little bit, then Pats a really good win on Friday night against Galway, just as they beat them in the quarterfinal of the cup as well. Pats are looking really strong. Nobody, as we end out this season, they've a bit like last season. Maybe they haven't been quite as good as they were at the end of last season, but they're finishing out strong, which is interesting to see. And also, and Shamrock Rovers, are definitely on their way now to potential champions once again. So I'm going to let Jamie in here now. You can do your little synopsis of all the games, and then we'll get into the previews. So go ahead there, Jamie.
Yeah, look, I was at the Connacht derby on Monday, and I felt like Galway were the better team, to be honest, in that game. And just the main thing that stood out to me, I suppose, is they didn't have that goal-scoring threat, and that was the reason they ended up losing, which I suppose is the fact they don't have Moses Dyer anymore. They haven't won a league game since he left, which is just incredible, really, isn't it? Like, they've been, and they started the league season off so well. Like, they were in a title race maybe 10 games into the season, which obviously is premature, and no one's really in a title race that early into the season. But like, to be where they are now, where I personally, at least from watching a lot of Cove Ramblers over this season particularly, but even over the last couple of years, I'd fancy them. I think Cove win the playoffs. I think they beat Galway. And Waterford, I haven't watched as much as Waterford compared to Galway, so I can't speak to the same extent. But form-wise, they don't look anything special. You said about the John Coleman news circulating. But I suppose the difference with Waterford is they do have that Padraig Hammond type player where they do have, even if they're playing bad, they have one of the best goal scorers in the league where they could nick a result. I don't feel like Galway have that. And that's a real disadvantage. I'm a big fan of Sligo. So I'm kind of happy to see them look like they're going to stay in the league. Again, that's kind of reactionary. It's still very close. Things could change. Galway could win all the remaining league games. I don't think they will, but I fancy Sligo to stay up at this stage. Other news in the league, I suppose. Yeah, I mean, we know the league's done. It could be officially done Friday, but yeah, I mean, Rovers beating Waterford, no surprise. Drogheda beating Shells at home. You wouldn't say you fancy them, but you wouldn't rule it out. Good result. Really good result for European race. Mason Melia scoring against Cork City on his 18th birthday. We just got to enjoy him while we still have him. Just a couple more games of him being a League of Ireland player. I suppose quickly over to the first division. Kerry FC drawing with Athlone Town, giving them their first point in I think 2 months, which is not a good result. Athlone had a player sent off towards the end. We had a debut goalkeeper making his first start for the club competitively. Dara Foley, a local lad, he saved the penalty. So fair play to him. And then Wexford versus Finn Harps. Good result for Wexford. They've kind of been in poor form recent weeks, so it's good to see them getting a result. And Harps have also been in good form, But I suppose that cup defeat definitely would have, really affected them. I think I definitely fancy them against Cork City. And then to lose the way they did would be disappointing. And playoff hopes are probably over for both Finn Harps and Kerry at this stage. That's kind of everything, really. An eventful week. Like, there was a lot of games. These Friday, Monday things should probably be a thing of the past. Like, I expect in the next couple of years for this to be over, because it's probably too many games to be playing in such a short time. I know Stephen Bradley's a big advocate for extending the league season and getting rid of these Monday games, at least the ones that aren't on a bank holiday, which is fair enough. I think that's something I'd be in favour of. I don't know your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think it's a fair point from Stephen Bradley, to be fair. So it's not much turnover, and especially when we have more clubs now competing in Europe. At a first division level as well, like, not all these clubs are actually full-time, like, so. And as we invite more non-full-time clubs in with the third division or whatever it's going to be called, North and South. It's probably a good shout from Bradley that maybe extend it out a few more weeks, and just, I guess the only disadvantage then though is that you have a shorter break from November to February, but maybe it's worth just adding an extra month. I don't know. It's definitely something that should be considered, and I think you always have to respect Stephen Bradley's opinion. He's very seasoned when it comes to this league, so it's an interesting one for sure. But that's perfect. Thanks very much. We'll get into the match previews here. So we have, for Friday night, I'm talking about here, we have some really important games here just to call them out. We've got Galway United versus Cork City, Shelbourne versus Waterford, Shamrock Rovers versus Bohemians, Drogheda United versus Derry City, and Saturday we'll be having Sligo Rovers up against St. Hats. So some close ones in there, to be fair. Starting off with Galway up against City. Cork City's away form has been dreadful this season. I believe you spoke there about how Galway haven't got a win there since Moses Dyer left, which is correct. And I actually think that win did come against Cork City at home. It was a 2-1 narrow win. Could be wrong there, but I'm fairly sure. So, you know, like Cork just can't travel at home at all, away at all, I should say. You know, the best result I can really remember us getting on the road this year has been, I think maybe Derry away might have picked up a point. You know, so fair play to the travelling fans that still turn up every week and make these away trips, because whatever it is, we're just absolutely allergic to it. But that being said, if you could really pick any place to go at the moment in the league, I think it would be Galway. With all due respect, they're really struggling for goals. You know, I actually we did that little watch along of Galway up against St. Pat's in the cup, not in the league but in the cup, and I like you were saying, I was really impressed by Galway actually. You know, some really good stuff out of them, but you know, it was oh my god, like they had a really good chance early in the first half, but it was just a lack of threat up front, clinicality that cost them in the end. So they definitely had the players to hurt Cork City, but so that's I don't think it's actually a really hard game to call. I think for the sake of making the last few games interesting, I think it'd be good. I'm obviously going to say this, but I think it'd be good for the league to see a Cork City win, just to make it a little bit closer. I think that would narrow it down to 4 points. But obviously, like if Galway win this, it's over 100. Like you know what I mean. But it's so weird because we've been saying for it feels like 3 months now, it's over. And to a large extent, I think it is over, even if Cork City do pick up a win, because there's still other games to play, and there's still a bit of a mountain to climb. But yeah, it's just so look, it's going to be very interesting to see how it goes. Final prediction. Not that this would be really any good to Cork City more so, but I think I'm going to go for 0-0. I think both sides struggle to even score here. But yeah, it's arguably the most important game of the week. But then again, there's the title as well, so that's debatable. But how do you see this one going, Jamie?
Yeah, I'd be inclined to agree. I was going to go 0-0 as well, but I'm not gonna copy you. So probably for the first time this season, I'm going to predict a Cork City win. Like I said, Galway a good team. They just don't seem like they can score goals. Darren McGuinness up front was a good first division player, but you know, he wasn't the best striker in the first division. You know, like to make that step up is a really difficult thing to do, and then to all of a sudden fill the shoes of Moses Dyer, who was the league's top scorer when he left, is a really difficult task, and he hasn't really been able to do that whatsoever. I just don't see Galway scoring a goal, and Cork City do have that threat. You know, they're not great defensively. You know, so there is that opportunity for Galway, but I just don't think they have the capability. So I'm going to go for a Cork City win for the first time this season. Yeah, let's make it interesting. Let's see if they can stay up and win the cup, as you would probably predict.
Oh, look, just to be clear, I don't predict we'll stay up. I do think we're going to go down. But I do actually, and this is probably going to get clipped by our good admin Keane, I am still standing by the prediction that we win the cup. And I know it's very bold, but I just am. There's no point in me trying to rationalize it, because there's no rationale behind it. If you think about it too deeply and rationalize it, you know, clearly we lose. Clearly St. Pat's hammer us, and even if we somehow miraculously beat them, Shamrock Rovers would beat us like 10-0. But
wait. Why are you saying Shamrock Rovers?
Well, yeah, that's a fair point. Yeah, that's so. Or Kerry. I'll but yeah, true. But the point is, yeah, I just have a feeling. I just really do have a feeling we're going to do it. It feels a little bit like Drogheda last season. Now, to be fair, Drogheda were not anywhere near as bad as we were, but it just, I don't know. I just think it's a year of the underdog, and I could see Rovers on the big stage kind of just. But again, it might not be Rovers, it could be Kerry. But that's my fault. That, you know, at the end of the day, I'm making a prediction here. I predict that Shamrock Rovers will beat Kerry. I just think that Rovers will not turn up in the big day. But look, we have to beat. And for once, the armchair fan is actually going to a game. By the way, I have my tickets booked for the St. Pat's game, so hopefully my presence will is what we've been missing this year. I don't know. That's definitely a load of nonsense, but yeah. So no, that's just to be clear. We had to discuss that. I still stand over that prediction, so we'll see how it goes. But yeah, I don't see us staying up, unfortunately. And I remember you actually asked the question in the chat when we were doing the live stream. You know, would I rather us stay up or us to win the cup? And I actually would rather we stayed up. So like this prediction is going against what I would personally prefer, but it's just actually that's all it is. It's a prediction. We'll see how it goes, you know. So yeah. Sorry.
Look, I doubt it. I have my tickets booked for Tala.
Amazing.
You know, hopefully there's apparently a way allocation of 1,000. I think Mount Park only holds about 1,000, so you know maybe our whole support base shows up. There's at least 4 coming with me, so you know we'll be there. I'm not predicting us to win the cup. We'll probably lose 4-0, but we'll be there.
Amazing. And look, to the fact that like it's well documented what we make of Kerry getting to the stage. It's an incredible achievement. But to stay on the topic of previews, next game up is Shelbourne against Waterford at Talca Park. Shelbourne coming off a defeat to Drogheda. Waterford also coming off defeat to Shamrock Rovers and Bows. So it's going to be, you know, two sides who aren't in the best of form. You would imagine Shelbourne, you know, with this recent momentum they've got since Joey O'Brien came into the club, that they would pick up the win here, particularly being at home, and put Waterford under even more pressure. However, you never know. You know, Waterford still have their quality with Padraig, Amond, etc. And whilst he might be losing his job, I still think John Coleman is a good manager. I don't think he's the problem there myself. You know, and I think they could end up. I think they actually could end up regretting if they do sack him. So it's Shelbourne at the end of the day are still in the race for Europe, so it's important for them. Even though I think they're kind of that those hopes they're at the bottom of the pile and in terms of the likeliness scale of getting to Europe. And Waterford are fighting for their lives to stay up. So I see Shelbourne winning this pretty comfortably 2-0. But it's actually it's probably the underrated game of the week. It's actually a really good week, to be fair. Really good match. You know, teams are kind of simply playing each other at the right time for where the table is sitting. So, but yeah, I'm going to say Shells win 2-0. So we'll let Jamie come in there for his opinion.
Yeah, I'd be interested to think what your thoughts on would be if Shells having the worst title defence, at least in the modern era. Like, you know, in my lifetime, I can't think of any team finishing below third the year after winning the league. I mean, in 2018, did he finish fourth? Or I can't remember. But like,
yeah, I'm pretty sure it was fourth. So yeah,
generally, like teams have been up there. Now Shells could still finish second mathematically, but it's not well. Look, you've got Europe, the Conference League. So I think overall it's going to be a positive season. You know, you'll take that. Losing Duff was big, but I think they get Europe. To be honest, they should be beating Waterford at home. You would think that's. I don't like using the word a gimme, but with Waterford's form. But actually, you know, John Coleman is a very defensive manager. He could just set up for a point. You know, God knows they need it. I would still fancy Shells. Their next game after this would be the European game. You know, so it's in front of the fans. It'll be getting them excited. There's going to be a lot of good vibes around the stadium. I would agree with you. I think they win.
Yeah, that's actually a really interesting point. Like, you know, I'm following the league since about 2016 or 17, and I can't remember a worse title defense. I really can't. You know, Shamrock Rovers struggled a little bit last season, but they still were like in the race. Like, it wasn't a terrible title defense. But like, they struggled by their standards. That doesn't mean it was a poor title defense. Is kind of what I'm saying. So honestly, like, I'm sure there was worse ones in League of Ireland history that we aren't so familiar with. But I think in our time watching it, which is I think when you're talking about football in general, I think that's the best way to talk about football is what you've watched yourself. I can't think of a worse one. I really can't. No, so it's a very good point. It's one we might, if let us know in the comments what you think. Is it the worst title defence you've seen in League of Ireland? Because it is up there for me, definitely. Next game we have to cover, we're lucky enough to cover, is Shamrock Rovers Bohemians, the big Dublin derby. Actually, now that I think about it, this is the same game week this is the same game week as game week 1, when they played at the Aviva. And actually the only game I was at this season as well, in Galway, Cork City against Galway at Turner's Cross. So, it's going to be definitely an interesting one again for sure. Bows have kind of been Rovers' kryptonite this season. I think Rovers have lost to Sligo earlier on in the year, but I think other than that, Bows are actually the only team that's managed to defeat them in the league. So I think could potentially struggle here, but at the same time, I think they'll just be well up for it. They're at home. They've had a bit of a 4-day rest now. It's going to be close, interesting, tight. And Bows will really want to prove a point, to make sure that their nearest rivals, their bitterest rivals, don't pick up a league title. But I do think Shamrock Rovers edge at 2-1. Just too much quality there. Graham Burke is on fire. Matt Healy is controlling things in midfield, and that back three is as solid as ever. Ed McGinty is making saves, so I think they edge at 2-1. But this is definitely the match of the week. I think it's one to keep an eye on. How do you see this one going, Jamie?
Yeah, Bows have beaten Rovers 3 times this season, so 100% record so far. I believe it was the Easter bank holiday at Tala. That was a very good game. I see Bows getting the result again. As you said, the sort of kryptonite. And I think they love that. There's no trophy for Bows this season yet again. So this could sort of be their trophy, delaying the title party. I see them getting the result. Again, I think Rovers' mind will be on. Different. I suppose it kind of counters my point for Shells, but Rovers have Europe next week as well, and then they have the Cup semi-final. So I don't know if that comes into Stephen Bradley's thought process of potentially, rotating the squad. Although, you could probably field a stronger team for this game and rest against Kerry. Hopefully they play all their weaker players Sunday week. But yeah, I fancy Bows. I just think they have something over Rovers this season. While they've been inconsistent, and especially in recent weeks, I think mathematically now they can't get relegated. So I think that was the goal going into the season. Now the focus is on Europe. I think they get a draw. It's not going to be 100% win record, but I think they get a draw.
Interesting, yeah. It's going to be it's one I'm definitely looking forward to seeing. Presume it's probably the match that's going to be on TV3. So yeah, definitely going to be a close one. The next one is another set of sides that have had some serious battles this season. Real hammer and tam at it, and both going for Europe as well. It's Drogheda United up against Derry City at home in Drogheda, Sullivan and Lamb Park. I think so look, Derry are, I think the table might reflect that Bows are higher, but Derry have been probably the team I've been most impressed by other than Rovers this year. To have a manager just be coming in Tiernan Lynch, and to just come in like Tiernan Lynch and still, be up, like not, they haven't given much of a title race, but they're still up there and they're still challenging. It gives me hope that they will, that their day will come, so to speak, and that they'll be up there in the next few years. Like Michael Duffy has really shown his quality this year. He's always been one of the better players in the league, when he was playing for Dundalk even and stuff like that. But this year he's back in his hometown and he's really absolutely flying it. But Drogheda have been so impressive as well under Kevin Doherty. They obviously lost Douglas James Taylor midway through the season, which would be a huge loss to anyone. And they probably have dropped off a little bit as a result, but they've still managed to hold their own. They're still very much in a European race. They're absolutely safe, despite winning the relegation playoff last year. They're absolutely safe. They're not going to go down. So I think it's two teams who can be very, happy with how they've performed this season. So look, the question here is do Drogheda, win Shamrock Rovers the title or not? Yeah, the way I see this one going, I'm going to say I'm not going to sit on the fence for a change, and I'm going to say Drogheda beat Derry 3-1, and Rovers win the league this match week. However, and I know I've really bigged up Derry there, and so I'm kind of contradicting myself, but I just think Drogheda, like, it's a bit of a fortress their place at home. So that's just the way I see it going. But Derry are more than capable. Like I think Derry have won there this year. Drogheda have had wins over Derry as well. So it's going to be a very tight one. But we'll let Jamie in for his thoughts here. But this is again another intriguing match for this week.
Yeah, I see it being similar to the cup game from a few weeks ago, where Drogheda kind of start better, Derry play poor, and then once the 60th minute mark hits, Derry realize they have to get somewhat of a result. They get a goal back. Obviously it's a league game, so there'll be no penalties. So I'd be the one to sit on the fence this time, and I'd go to draw 1-1. I think it's a good result for both teams, really. They're both kind of in that European race. Probably a better result for Derry because they're slightly ahead. And because you're going away to a place where it's difficult to get wins or results. But yeah, I think they're two evenly matched teams, and I would say a draw.
Interesting, yeah. It's absolutely possible. Last Premier Division game we have, and then we'll do a quick preview for the First Division as well for all our First Division fans. We have Sligo at the Showgrounds up against St. Pat's. So Sligo obviously got a really crucial, important win there against their Connacht rivals Galway that Jamie was at. It's going to be like, and then obviously St. Pat's are in really good form as well. So I think this is shaping up to be like a really good game. I want to say the last time these sides met, I think Pats beat them 2-0. I think it was away again. Or maybe that was Shells, because I'm really bad for getting Shells and Pats confused at times, which is quite embarrassing. But anyway, so I'm going to say, I think, look, Sligo are in the driving seat now. The likes of Owen Elding, Jed Hakiki, and Will Fitzgerald, who they've managed to retain, have really driven them into this this driving seat that they're going to be okay to stay up, not even get into a relegation playoff. I think John Russell, like we made the shout a few weeks ago, I think there's a shout for him to be manager of the season. Really tough start to the year, unlucky with injuries and matches and fixtures and so on and so forth, and they've really managed to come back into it and get to safety. But they're not safe just yet. And I think they are going to have a little setback this week. St. Pat's are in amazing form, as you say. Look, Mason Melia, he's going to be a huge loss to the league. But he's also going to be I think he's going to be a great credit to the league, as he goes on his journey to Tottenham Hotspur. So, yeah, I see Pat's just about edging this one 2-0 and putting a little bit of pressure on Sligo. Unless now I guess Sligo are looking at that Cork City Galway game and hoping for a draw. But I think just regardless, a bit of pressure is going to be put back on them, and they'll have to get back to the drawing board again. But so final prediction: St. Pat's to win 2-0, and we'll go into the First Division then after that. So how do you think this one will go, Jeremy?
Yeah, look, I think we've all been disappointed with Pat. Even disappointed with Sligo. It's kind of the thing they've been doing for the last couple of years, starting off poor and finishing well. And just about staying up. Last season it wasn't as dangerous, but I'd be inclined to agree with you. I think Pats will be determined. They have nothing to play for the rest of this. Oh well, they do. They have the cup, but I think full focus is just getting that European place. Whether that's through the cup or not. Sligo's a difficult place to go. Sligo are a good team. I think they're capable of beating anyone. They're the only team bar Bows to beat Shamrock Rovers, as you said. And I think when you have the the individual quality that they have. I mean, Jada Kiki was very impressive on Monday night. We've all been talking about Owen Elding this season. They have a lot of very talented players. They have the individual quality, but so do Pats. Because it's home, I think Sligo get a draw. I think they get somewhat of a result. They have the advantage on a Saturday night, so they can see the Galway versus Cork City result. And if Galway win, I think they'll probably go into it with a more defensive mindset. If Cork City were to win, they kind of have a little bit more freedom, so they can maybe play for a win, or at least there's not as much pressure to get something out of the game, and they can express themselves more. But I would say a draw. I think I'm going to go with that, and that'll really give them a nice little cushion over Galway.
A draw would be a fantastic result for them, yeah. Regardless of how other games go, especially with Waterford being underdogs against Shells, I think they'd be very happy with a draw, to be fair. As they go for probably 7th is the best they can hope for, really. But we're just going to do a brief preview there of the first division. Just to call out the games, we have Bray Wanderers, Longford Town, Cove Ramblers, Finn Harps, Dundalk, UCD, Kerry Treaty, and Athlone Town, who just got their first point in 3 months, I want to say, up against Wexford FC. Some very interesting ones in there, to be fair. Your club up against our set of admins, and Dundalk, the 6-point lead, Cove at the fortress that is St. Coleman's Park. So I think there's some good action in the first division again this week. But I'll hand it over to you because you obviously are much more in tune than I am. So go ahead.
Yeah, Kerry Treaty, a home game I'm not going to be at. They've won every home game I haven't been at this season, so I'm going to say a win for Kerry. There's a little bit of injury issues with goalkeepers, but other than that, pretty full health. That's bad English, but you know what I mean. Squad. I think it would be a good crowd. Trying to wish them the best of luck going into next week. Against Shamrock Rovers, the biggest game in the club's history. All the games, Dundalk, UCD. We'd sort of hope for a title race. I think that hope is dying. I don't think it's going to be that way. I mean, look, Cove have pushed the league leaders further than any other team has done in recent First Division history, but it's not been enough. I think Dundalk win the league. Cove versus Finn Harps, you would fancy Cove. I think they're just going to be in that playoff mindset. Athlone versus Wexford, interesting enough game. Considering Athlone got a point versus Kerry, they're mathematically going to finish bottom of the league. So there's nothing really to play for Athlone. Wexford, kind of a little bit of a playoff hope, but little. And Bray versus Longford, 2 teams again with little to play for. Bray have their playoff spot, and Longford aren't going to get one. So I think the First Division season is relatively over. I think that the only real playoff spot up for grabs is the one Treaty currently hold in 5th place. But other than that, it's sort of at the point of the season where I think everyone's mindset is just on the playoffs.
One thing I really can't wait for, Jamie, is when the new divisions are here. They're talking 2028 at the moment, because it's the way this first division is set up. It's kind of unfortunately inevitable that as we approach the end point of the season, there's very little to play for because there's no relegation. It's only now, I know there's quite a few playoff places, but even that is, so I think it's going to really add to the league. Even if the teams aren't as good quality, I think it's really going to add to the league once that's it in place,
Yeah, look, there's the only thing I think is to play for is that final first playoff spot in 5th place. You look at the table, Dundalk, are 6 points ahead, 4 games to go. It's not out of the question. If Dundalk lose a game, Cove play Dundalk in the last game of the season, there's a chance. Now, Dundalk have better goal difference, so Cove would have to batter them. But that's sort of it. I would agree with you. There's no relegation threat. So Athlone have been terrible this season, but there's no repercussion, bar probably, just a toxic environment, and you're probably losing a bit of support. But Yeah, it can't come quick enough. The third division. I know there's going to be a few seasons where there is no promotion or no relegation because of, they'll need to set up properly, which is the right thing to do in my opinion. Leave those teams get accustomed to being a League of Ireland club. But I think once the relegation system is in place, it makes the division a little bit more exciting. There's a little bit more to play for towards the end of the season. I think it's just all around better for the league because you get more clubs, more areas get a League of Ireland club, and the league continues to grow.
Yeah, absolutely. And just before we round off, because honestly we could talk about this topic all day, but I think it's, we might actually do an episode on it if people would be interested in that maybe in the off season. But I think it's going to be interesting to see if they keep the 5 playoffs or if they reduce that down a little bit, when the third division comes in. I guess maybe there's answers to this already that I haven't read up on, but I think that stuff is going to be really interesting to see for sure. And that note kind of brings us to the end of the pod. Just a massive thanks to Baz. Shout out to Baz for hosting the space. And it was honestly, now I didn't get a chance to listen to it other than in for 2 minutes, but from what I heard, it was the best space we've ever done. So he put me to shame, and genuinely fair play to him. He really massive shout out to Baz for that, for hosting that. And I won't name any names, but somebody did actually text me saying your mate is much better than you at the spaces. So I'll take the criticism on board. And to Scott as well, and to everyone who went in. I think Jack might have went in as well. So that's a real treat that if you're listening right now, you would have already enjoyed. But yeah. We'll round off with that. Thanks everyone so much for tuning in, and we'll be back again next week. Thanks everyone. Thanks everyone for watching.